So good afternoon. You all know who I am by now, I would think. Welcome to our third session. And I just have a couple of quick reminders for everyone. We do have captions turned on. We are recording, and I will make that link available to anybody that needs it in a follow-up email. All of the things that were for today's session, including the homework that we'll give you at the end of the session, are in the Google Drive folder that you got the link for in the reminder email. We will again be using the Padlet today. You got that link in your reminder. I'll put it in the chat box again here in just a minute, just in case you don't have it easily available. At the end of the session, I'll ask you to complete another session eval, and I will put that in the link in the chat box, that link in there towards the end of the training. And again, if you have any trouble today with whatever, try to get a hold of me either through chat or send me an email, or I'll put my phone number in there too, so you can get me. And I think that is all I wanted to say. I'm going to turn it over to you, Nancy, so that I can get back to putting people in rooms.
Okay, because what I thought we would do after she gets us put in rooms and gives me the okay, then I'm going to have us go into those rooms, because I'd really like for you to unpack a little bit about what you watched over the last homework assignment in the foundations and the essential strategies. There was a lot of information in there, and none of it was anything you haven't heard before or done before. But when you put the lens of communication with it, then it makes you go, huh, and you think a little bit more, and hopefully it caused you to think about particular students you work with, different ideas, different thoughts and strategies that you might come up with. One of the things that strikes me, and has been for the last couple of years, which of course you all have been living it also, but that's COVID and the impact on this population that we're talking about. Because, you know, here's the deal. None of us really understood COVID when it happened, when it unfolded, when we were locked down. You know, none of us really understood it, but we had been through change before, and we had communication, we had words, we had knowledge, we had concepts, so we could adjust, although it was hard for us to adjust but when we think about our students and what they went through, and can you imagine some of our students, and of course I come from the deaf-blind world, so when the deaf-blind world, if you don't have the vision and hearing, you can't really get those cues from other people. So then all of a sudden, everybody in your household is really, they're acting weird. They're acting different. Everything's different, everything's strange, and nobody's really letting them know what's going on. Because there's not a way to really, we don't know what's going on. How are we supposed to let these kids know what's going on? And why life has gotten different, and why mom and dad are all stressed out, why we're all of a sudden not going to school, you know, all of those things that happened. So, you know, there was a lot of confusion that went on for a long period of time, especially this population, the kids we're working with, they were out, and some of them are still kind of grappling with that. So, you know, some of that falls in here, and thinking about what they learned in those couple of years, and what are the things that we have to unteach them, you know? And that's why it's really important. I think that's where that trusting relationship, even though we've had a trusting relationship in the past, we've looked at trusting relationships, we assume we have those trusting relationships, but that's another reason why this is really important, is because once again, trust has been banished for these kids, just bashed. And so here we are again, trying to get them back up. No, just kidding about COVID. Sorry that happened to you, you know, but that's the kind of thing that we need to think about. And what did they learn in those 2 years? What are we having to unteach them? you know, because I'm sure there were a lot of bad behaviors. I've got a passel of grandchildren, and I can tell you just in my typically developing grandkids what bad habits came out of COVID, you know? And so with this population, I think it's even more so. And so that's one of the reasons why I feel like this, and especially as we were working on this content, that crossed my mind numerous times, is that trusting relationship and what we've got to do to play catch up with these kids, and how we're going to do it, and how can we. So hopefully this information helps you to think about those things and think it through. You know, the other piece is just that whole availability to learn. And we will unpack that a little bit more after you guys talk. I have lots to say about lots of these things. In case you haven't noticed, I do talk a lot. But I want to not put my 2 cents worth in until I hear from your 2 cents. How's that? So did I just see the thumbs up from you, Lisa? Yay.
Yes. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I've got you in the same groups you were in last time. Probably most of them have 2 different teams in them. And we will send you to these rooms to discuss the questions that we asked you to think about when you went through the videos this week or a couple weeks. And then if you would find somebody in your group willing to record anything you think was particularly helpful or particularly interesting, or just whatever you all think need to be recorded. The questions are up on the Padlet. I did not put that link in there. I'm sorry, guys. I'll get that in just a second. The questions are up on the Padlet. You can put those underneath the questions for each of your groups. And if you might designate this as group, whatever your room number is, okay? You'll have 20 minutes to talk amongst yourselves about it, share ideas, share, oh, I thought this was really neat, or it really applies to our student. And anything else you want them to think about, Nancy, other than what I've said?
No, really, just what resonated with you over the content? What were things that you thought, yeah, I know that, or yeah, we do that all the time, or oh, I've never thought about that, or I don't really understand this piece. It doesn't matter. You know, what we really want is you all having conversations, because I think when you think about all of these things, it goes, you know, when you think about communication and just everything that is involved in building communication for this population. So we really want you to think about those things as you're talking, and we'll see you in those rooms. I'm going to pop in and out.
So find somebody, designate somebody, draft somebody to record in the Padlet. And then we're going to probably ask you to share maybe one thing or something from what your discussion was when we come back. So I'm going to send you
just what resonates, what comes up to the top. And hopefully there'll be something that will surface.
All right.
Surely.
We're going to send you to your rooms. The breakout is 20 minutes, Jessica.
Okay, this is pretty short and sweet, what I've got in here, but I kind of want to just.
Are you going to have them share anything first?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I am going to have them share. What I'd like to do is maybe take them by room. I know we didn't have anybody in room 2, right?
That is correct.
But we had rooms 1 through 7, except for 2. So, yeah, I'd like to just hear a little bit. It doesn't have to be long and deep, just a little bit about what you talked about in your rooms. And anything that just surfaced up from you watch. Now, just to clarify, because I understand that some people didn't get this or that or the other. We're talking about the foundations intervention module, I guess, which was broken into several parts, 3 parts. And then we're talking about the essential strategies. So those were the things y'all were supposed to watch and kind of take notes and such. So with that, group 1, what kind of conversation did you guys have?
This is Jenna. Oh. And feel free, anyone from group 1, to jump in. Some overall concepts that we discussed. One was that the matrix is new to some of the team in my room. So we talked about just how much information comes with it and how it really is a really valuable resource. But when you're first getting started, it's kind of like, whoa, and a lot to process, but it's making sense. And then some further conversation took us to the essential, was it an essential strategy or a foundation about concepts? Anyway, I'm looking at, it's a big Padlet. About concepts and how the videos were great for a reminder about how our routines, rather, with routines that, you know, we teach our students routines because we think that's what's best for them. And it is so for so many students, but this really helps solidify the information on how we're teaching concepts through our routines as well. Not just like that we do things at this time for predictability and understanding of the environment. So that was something that piece brought to light. And there was one more thing, but I've lost my train of thought. If anyone from Team 1 or Room 1 wants to jump in with anything else. Oh, it really helps with goal writing. And it wasn't necessarily related to any of I didn't put it on the Padlet in a section, but that they really appreciate the goal writing piece of the matrix and how it helps really keep it individualized for that student and to know that student and to understand that student and that relationship. And so you aren't going to make the mistake of, you know, thinking about other goals, and how it can be very easy, right, when we're in it, to be like, okay, I know this set of goals, and to keep going with those. But now we really keep it focused on the student and looking forward through that lens.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I got to pop into your group and heard a little bit of what you all, the confusion and the overwhelmed, which it is. All of this is overwhelming. But hopefully we're taking little bites out of it, and we're chewing on it and thinking about it and unpeeling some of it and figuring it out. And we're going to hopefully do that a lot. You know, I mean, that's what makes us better teachers, is when we really sit down and unpack some of this and wonder, you know, why am I doing this? Why is this important? Yeah, they tell me routines, you know, and I'll go back to our COVID experience. How many of you, all of our routines were banished, just bashed in an instant, right? And we had to suddenly figure out all these new routines. And you think about the importance of routines in your own life, having just been through that experience. And I bring that to you because for me, that's how I learn best, is that if I think about how does this apply to me? Oh, well, that's why it might be important to my student. So when we think about routines, and I will tell you also that I really firmly believe, you know, think about your routines, your own personal routines, and all the routines that you've reestablished or established again, or changed up your routines, or whatever you've had to do over the last few years. But you were able to adjust those. And while it was inconvenient and it was hard, you still had the center of you who knew who you were and what you were doing and everything else. And because of that, you're able to do your routines, but you can multitask and do several routines all at once, right? And we do that because they're so ingrained in us. And one of the things I think that happens with our students is that we don't necessarily teach them routines so that they become rote. Because it's that roteness that helps us to be able to do it, and we don't have to think about it. But our students, unfortunately, still have to think about so many pieces and parts of routines. So if we teach it in a very systematic way and teach them each step of those, then it does become rote and they are able to do it. And then they are able to multitask, but we got to get them there first. And that's one of the reasons I feel like routines are so vital to what we're doing and how we operate as humans and why it's so important that we teach. So I can go on and cross off routines off of that list that I've got up here, because that's what I have to say about that. I really feel like I'm very passionate about that because I've really unpacked that a lot, but it's been through thinking about my own routines and how vital and important they are to me. I found myself during COVID doing a lot of dishes, hand washing dishes, because for me, it was, I could see a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I could actually see something that was made and done. And, you know, that's why I like to mow grass, because I can see, oh, wow, I actually finished something. You know, life is so messy and we get so caught up in so many things. But when you can see it actually unfold and actually start to finish, I do a lot of canning. That's another place where routine and all of those steps come in, and it really helps me to function as a person. So that's one of the things I think is really important with routines and why we do it. Okay, so thank you, Group 1. I appreciate your efforts and your discussion and such. All right, room 3. Anybody home from room 3?
Oops, sorry. I was trying to unmute myself and I couldn't do it. There we go.
If you're like me, you were talking away and then realized, oh.
Yeah, oh, here we go. Here we go.
And now we can't see you either, Kathy.
Oh, what? Oh, there we go. Oh my gosh, so many buttons. So sorry. I kept clicking, and then it was going on and off. Well, I mean, I just really feel like, and feel free to talk with me, girls, if you're still there. So first of all, I've always done the online version. I've never done the paper version. So I guess I didn't realize there were differences in the two, and I can see where doing the paper might be a little better at times, because I think you have a tendency on that online version to click a button without really knowing, you know, the other things that you need in order to do that. Like, you know, there are things that we miss, I think. And so I like that idea on maybe just kind of doing both and just kind of seeing where you are, or having multiple people, like it said, do this and then come together with one version. I think that would be best. I really liked the idea that when you start talking about goals, that you don't have to really start at that level where they have maybe a couple and not very many, but you can move backwards and forwards depending on their need. And so that's always important too, because like you were talking about, Nancy, that, you know, you got to start where they're at and not where we want them to be. So I think that made the most sense to me and what I got out of it. I liked all the conversation about the touch cues and all that, because yes, I mean, I think we forget about those things, and how we can use those physical objects to communicate too. And so I enjoyed hearing all of that. Anybody else in my group have anything else to say? I loved reviewing all the stages as well, and the intentionality.
Right, because intentionality, until we get to intentionality, then we're kind of lost there for a while. In those first couple of levels, it's really hard, because if they don't see us as a communication partner, and they don't have intention around it and know that we are there to have that give and take with each other, then it's hard.
Right. And building that trust, like you said,
building that trust all at the same time. I think that's where, and we're so prompt dependent and toy dependent and all those other things. We like to take things and do things with kids. I think when you're at those lower stages, those lower levels, 1 and 2, and even getting into 3, I think you ditch those for a while. You ditch those, and it's that joint attention. It's that back and forth, that trying to get that flow going with each other, and having them understand that, hey, this can be fun, you know, and
Absolutely.
that's through those games, those back and forth, those just whatever they're doing. I tend to get in the floor and do what they're doing, because number one, then they start looking over at me like I've gained their attention, because they're like, nobody else has ever done that.
Right.
Why are you self-stimming? That's my gig.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wait a minute, that's my gig. Why are you doing it? And through that self-stimming, if they're doing it this way, then I might do it this way. I'll do it their way for a minute, and then I'll get them and have what we call a conversation with them. And it's not necessarily using anything with my mouth. I might say things, but for the most part, I'm going to mimic what they're doing, and then that gets their attention, and then I'm going to change it up just slightly, you know, and see if they won't do a little turn taking with me, and a little bit of back and forth and flow, and just getting them in that kind of thing, because that's how we make those connections. That's how we get to intentionality, is by doing those kind of up close and personal. It's really got to be that flow back and forth, that turn taking. And I can give you a bazillion different goals that go with those. And I think we already have in all of those levels that you're going to see this next time. Because we've given you the big picture with the foundation and the concepts. Now we're going to get into the levels with you over this next time. So thanks for those things. I'm glad. And touch cues, once again, I come from the deafblind world. We're all about touch. We love us some touch. And I realize that, you know, we're not every kid on here is deafblind. We understand that. But that's also, you know, in the deafblind world, we get every disability known to mankind in all different formats, you know, so we can have vision and hearing problems and autism, you know, vision and hearing and all kinds of other different combinations. So we've covered just about every gambit. What I'd love to see, and you're going to get these resources in this next homework assignment. You're going to get a bunch of resources. Most of them come from the deafblind world, because the ones of us that created this stuff came from the deafblind world, but we'd love to have any other resources to put in our little toolkit, because this is going out to everybody. I mean, we're launching this so that everybody is out there and has access. So if you have any kind of resources around any of this, please send it on, because we're putting it up on a website. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
So thanks. Okay, room 4. Do y'all feel like you've been called to the principal's office?
Hi. We spoke to, we were just speaking to the differences between, neither one of us had done the paper matrix, but just kind of the couple of times that we've done the online version, how we noticed it was not necessarily the most reflective. And so we would like to default to trying a paper copy of that and identifying where those differences lie, and to see if we can get it more accurate for the child. And then we also really like how it gives you the visual representation of where the child is, and then the progression of kind of where you're going, because when you're working on teams of people who maybe aren't familiar with our profession or exactly what we do, it really helps them to see where we're at and where we're going and how to get there. And we spoke to the rapport between the children and the communication partners, how it's so important to have reliable communication partners, because the children need to feel seen, to feel loved, to feel liked, to feel safe and available to communicate. And they need to have someone there where they have the relationship that that person is a communication partner instead of just another caretaker or someone, you know, who's there to do things for them. And then also just how once you establish that communication, how important it is to kind of build flexibility so that if somebody's out, you're not completely rocking their world.
Which happens a lot. Which
Yeah.
happens so much when you have that one-on-one that's with them and they're gone and the kid is lost and everybody's scrambling because they don't know the kid.
Yes. And then we also spoke about the receptive and expressive communication relationship, about how the receptive communication has to be there and they have to have a solid understanding of that before the expressive piece will come out, and how those two levels oftentimes will not be the same, receptive and expressive communication, and how the modes of communicating each way may actually be different as well.
Exactly. Because you can definitely have a child who understands or receptively receives things through pictures or through tactile representation or whatever, and then expressively they may use sign. So, you know, or several combinations of things. So yeah, that's a common thing. I've had a couple of teams. I remember one time I had a team that they all wanted him to learn sign language, and that was just a given, but everybody spoke to him. So it became one of these things where it was like, well, who's teaching sign to him? He can't learn sign if no one's signing with him. If no one's giving him that, how is he supposed to learn it? And that was a big, oh, we didn't think about that for the team. So, you know, some of those things you really have to unpack. If whatever the child needs, the team needs. So if the child needs sign, then guess what? The team needs to learn some sign also. So it's one of those things where you really have to stop and think about what it is we're asking kids to do, and are we giving them a clear line to get there? And you're right, the receptive piece of that has to come in, and it has to be, it's kind of like your computer and how you put things into your computer. If you don't put them in the right way, it's not going to come out the right way. So the same thing with our kids. If we don't receptively give them these things, then expressively, we're not going to get it back because they're not going to have it to give to us. So we have to put that receptive piece in. Think about typically learning kids and how many times they hear the spoken word before they ever utter their first. So that's very much a piece of this, and we have to think about those things. So thank you very much. Okay, room 5.
Hi, I was the note taker for room 5. I think a lot of our conversation was around teaming and how wonderful and important and valuable it is to make sure that you're working with everyone. We talked a lot about sensory needs and behavior supports, and I think someone said talking about, you know, it was a room full of SLPs. So we're talking about, you know, sometimes you have to take your communication hat off in a way, make sure that you are working with your OT and thinking about all those sensory needs, and working with the classroom teacher and thinking about their routines and the family. So that was a really big theme. One of the things that we talked about, and I was curious if anyone else has any ideas about this, but that transition between when we're thinking about building relationships and trust, and when that situation happens that you move to a new building and now you're having to start relationships all over again, making sure that, you know, the communication dictionary and the all the supports and all the tools are the way that they need to be. Certainly we're describing it hopefully well in our IEPs, but it's not necessarily enough. So I know we've had some teams decide to upload a PDF that just says, this is the link to the Google Drive with all the backup supports of the files and pictures and videos and things like that. So that's a way, since you can't upload videos into our IEP system, that might be one way to kind of make sure that everyone gets access to the documents and the resources, especially if that student were to move school districts, making sure that's all there. But if anyone else has any other ideas, we would love to know. And then,
And that was one of the reasons why we felt like you needed to have that Google Drive,
yeah,
because, kids do move, and not everybody moves with that kid. They may have an elementary team that knows him well. Everybody on that team knows him so well and knows everything. But then he goes to the middle school and it's got to start from scratch. And that's why having that Google Drive, having those communication dictionaries, I look at it as paying it forward, and hopefully someone will pay it to you someday. So if you're putting all this work in and then you're sending it, maybe somebody else will do that for you, So at this point, at least we have that. You think about it, hasn't been that long that we didn't have Google Drive that we could send all this information. And this is the good stuff. This is the stuff people need, because otherwise it's 6 months before people really get to know this kid and the kid feels comfortable enough. And you've lost so much time. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I would say the only other thing that we were talking about was, I think we got cut off, and I panic quit my room. I didn't get to hear the end, but that intentionality piece, in my experience, is so hard for folks to wrap their head around, especially because there's no magical bell that happens when the behavior is intentional, or that thing they're doing is intentional. There's no magical, choir and behind the student. Yeah. I arrived, I finally get it. So
it's when they start using you as a tool, is the way I look at it. You are now the tool. They're coming to you, they're grabbing you and taking you to what they want.
It might take a little while to realize, oh, that's what you're doing.
Right.
For some students, it's a little obvious. Other students, it's just, it can be really difficult to attribute, oh, that's intentionality, or we've moved up a level.
Right. And really, when you get to that, then it's game on. It's before that, it really is hard. It's so hard to get there. But once you get to intentionality and that they know that you're a communication partner, that's when you go out and celebrate, But you're right. It's that slight, that really watching for it, looking for it, and even realizing that it's not there or it is there, Do you have any other, as an SLP, all you SLPs, jump in on this intentionality bandwagon, because it's a huge piece. Are there any things, any tools in your toolbox, or any ways that you have to know it, and that's another piece, is sitting back and going, oh wow, how do I do that?
I'll say I've been doing this for years, and I still always question myself. I think that's a healthy place to be in, is recognizing I don't know what's going on in that student's head. And then also recognizing when we're especially working on, he's doing the thing, and then he stops doing the thing. That's an important piece of that too, because not doing the thing, whatever the thing is, hitting the switch, or, moving his arms around, or asking for more, and then stop doing it. That's also part of the learning process, and celebrating, okay, he stopped, and we're also going to respond to him stopping, like acknowledging that stopping also means something.
Right. I mean, all of this is so fascinating. And when you get into it and really start unpacking it, you really are a detective. It's a lot of fun, but it's also frustrating. And you kind of feel like, am I crazy? Did I really just see that?
That's where I haven't moved from the, am I thinking it right? I'm not moving from that spot just yet.
That's okay. That's okay. I haven't either. I just always look at kids as if they have my brain power. They just don't have a way to do it. And I feel like that's been a pretty healthy place to start. And I've been all over the country and I'm asked to go in and here, you're the expert, come in here and work miracles, show us your stuff. And it's like, I don't know this kid and this kid doesn't know me. So I've had to learn over the years to get really that trust in there and that for me is being wide open and being just having that affect around me that I want to have a conversation with you. I want to get to know you. I want to know who you are, and here's who I am. And it's that being that open, then I find that kids really do respond fairly well. And I get some great conversations out of them because I've been open and I really think of them as having my brain power, and we are having a conversation. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know how you tick. I want to get to know, and I will poke the bear. I like to poke the bear. I think it's kind of fun to see those reactions and see what happens. Have I been bit a few times? Well, yeah, I've been kicked and bit and scratched and all that good stuff. But it's also been, they get to know me pretty quickly too. Like, no, we don't bite in my world. Thanks though. So, it just, but getting to that intentionality is really, it's a wonderful day when you find out that they have it. So any other SLPs want to jump in on this bandwagon? Anybody? Okay, I guess not. All right. So room 6.
Hello. So, hi.
I
So
like where you are.
I know, right? Me too. I'm just on my porch. So we had a great conversation in our small group, and although we touched on some of the conversation topics that you've talked about a little bit before, one of the things that we spent some time on was talking about the Communication Bill of Rights and the permission to touch students and using the touch chats, but making sure that students aren't being shocked by your movements, by building in those routines and making sure that you're being respectful. And, I was sharing the fact that, I was an essential skills teacher in the, late 90s and early 2000s. And we didn't have the same code of conduct with the kids to make sure that you were being as respectful as now I want to happen every time I walk into a classroom. I don't want people to be talking about a student in front of a student, just not presuming that competence that you're talking about. And I have certain levels of things that I want to see happening. Katie, one of our, and feel free to jump in, team. But one of our essential skills teachers who's in our group was talking about the fact that she had a new staff member who came in who was going through those verbal routines with a student while transferring him and preparing him and giving him cues to move into his wheelchair, and how grateful she was that that person intuitively was thinking about those respectful moves without even being told originally to do that. And that's hopefully getting more into the rhetoric of how we are working with students when we don't know where they're, receptive or lies because they don't have the expressive to tell us the things that we want to know. And so, of course, like it quoted Ghost Boy and Martin Pistorius in that video too. And it just about killed me, when you have that locked in syndrome and you absolutely are able to tell us later how you felt with your experience of the way that you were treated. So important to have that Communication Bill of Rights in place, and so important to be able to empower people to treat students the way that they need to be treated. Was just definitely something that we talked about at length.
Oh, I love y'all had that conversation. I'm so glad y'all are bringing in more than just the questions that we gave you, because I really hope that everything that we put in those two modules, or whatever we want to call them, have helped just to spark some thoughts and ideas and just ways to use, to think about how to get to communication with these kids, because it's important. It's important for us to have that background and that knowledge and some of those things to think about as we try to give them ways to communicate. So, yay, that makes me so happy that you all had that conversation. Because
definitely.
we felt like the Communication Bill of Rights needed to be in there, that we needed to talk about that, and just all of the things that were put in there. Once again, there were 5 of us, all of us in our 60s, and we've all been around the block about 400 times. So we felt like these are things that just would bubble up and were important parts that we felt like people needed to think about as they made a plan.
Absolutely. And I will say, you know, shout out to Jessica Conrad. Like the first time I ever heard of that Communication Bill of Rights, she mentioned it. And I thought to myself at that point, this needs to be on the walls of every classroom, of every school, for everybody out there, you know. And then of course the reminders are coming back up as we're in this important video series. So thanks so much.
Well, yay. Thank you. All right. Are we to room 7? Last but not
I
least.
think so. We talked about a lot of what's already been talked about. One thing we did talk about is just the without having those routines, the stress that can put on a student of not being able to anticipate what's coming. And then with that, you can't learn when you're stressed, when you're in that state of stress and not being able to learn. And so just how important that is to kind of think of it from their perspective of, if they don't know what's coming, how can they be in a place to even start learning?
Right, because it is that defense mode, and that's where they are. And you can't learn when you're in that defense mode. You're so worried about your safety that you can't have anything come in. So letting them know what's going to happen next is really, really vital. That's why we put those calendar systems together. That's why we establish those routines. That's why we build all of these things that we do, so that they can release their stress and really be able to be responsive to what we have to offer them. That's awesome. I'm tickled to death to hear that.
Yeah, and I think everything else has kind of just been covered, of just the consistency, so that we're also not, if 2 people are doing different things with the same intention, that student is learning 2 different things. So making sure everyone's doing the same thing the same way so that they can actually learn it.
Right, and that's where we really have to be thinking about that consistency. And that's the reason why we bring the teams together, is because of that consistency. You know, I think the last time I told you about the 7 ways of asking for a Pepsi. I mean, come on, guys, we got to do better than that. We got to give them. And did I tell you all that story? You're looking at me like I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. We know of a situation where there was a kid who had 7 different ways that he had to ask for a Pepsi from 7 different people. So in other words, one was saying, oh, well, I get him to do this. I get him to do this. One of them had him to do the old sign for Coke. One had him, he just came over and pulled them. So everybody had a different way for this kid that he had to ask for a Pepsi. And, you know, we do that in so many ways to kids, and we're not even aware that we're doing that. So as the team moves forward, we really have to stop and think about what cues we're giving, how we're asking, even the verbiage that we're using. Everything needs to be pretty consistent. He's going to have to learn that we're all different personalities and we bring different things to the table. But there are some things, as we're getting them up out of their wheelchair or even out of their chair to go with us to someplace or whatever, whoever's coming in to do, they need to make sure that those things are consistent. And also that environmental supports are in place. That all leads into that supportive environment. And if we don't get our act together, then how are they supposed to get theirs? I mean, that's the thing that I think that we need to come back to each and every time is, are we doing this so that everybody's on the same page? That's one of the things I think that is going to be so powerful about having this content, is really thinking through that stuff, because it really is. That's a game changer for kids. Did anybody talk about availability to learn? And you can undo yourself if you want. Nobody really talked about it.
This is Jessica from Group 5. We talked about it, particularly talking about working with families like sleep routines and medication, and just working alongside as many people as you can to make sure that that student's body feels like they can learn.
Right. And the other thing is to get with your OT. You know, your OT is going to be really helpful in helping you establish how to get to that availability, you know, really getting them, and it may require a sensory diet of some sort, or you know, depending on the child, depending on their biobehavioral states and what's going on with that. As you know, if they're on a lot of medications, when's the best time for us to get to them? You know, because a lot of times kids will zone out because they're, quite frankly, they're bored. You know, they know the routine so well, or our routine so well, not necessarily theirs. That, you know, we come in, we do a little bit with them, and then they pretty much are zoned out for the rest of the day. So yeah, I'd fall asleep too. You know, it's giving them that opportunity as much as anything else. But I really feel like that availability is kind of key to how we really start this whole train off. Is if they're not available, if we haven't connected with them and gotten that joint attention. You know, so many times we're in our own head so much. We're coming in, I've got 30 minutes and I've got 2 things I really need to do with this kid. And so I'm thinking about that and thinking about, okay, and I'm going through my routine beautifully and offering all of this. But a lot of times I've forgotten to even check in to see if I really have their attention and that we have joint attention. You know, we've gone through the routine, we've gone through the lesson, we've done everything. And they've kind of been this, you know, learned helplessness a lot. We do a lot of teaching learned helplessness because we tend to do things for them. And so therefore we really have to stop and think about and give our own selves just that check of, are they with us? Have I established that? Do I know that we have joint attention on whatever it is we're doing? Or am I just running off on my own, you know, on my own little lesson, and I can check that off my list, but have I really hit them and gotten the things for them that they need? You know, because a lot of times, and one of the things you can do, and especially I think wait time is one of the things that was in the essential skills. And that's one of the things that we're bad about. You know, because we do have that routine. We do have our 30 minutes. I've got to get in, I've got this thing to do, and I've got to get out of here. So we tend to bam, bam, bam kids. And okay, do you have this? Yes, no. Oh, okay. And then we push forward and we don't give that wait time enough credit. One of the things I saw once with a kid that really made me think about wait time and really think about how it takes some of their bodies a long time to get to them. I had a kid once that was, it was the end of the day, the buses had rolled up, it was May, the windows were open, and he's standing at the edge of the windows, and he's got his hands in the windows, and he's jumping up and down and looking out at the buses and, you know, just smiling and laughing, and the window shuts on his fingers. And it took this kid, I'm not kidding, it took a full 30 seconds. You could watch the whole thing on his face, from his hand where it slammed down on his fingers, and you could almost see the pulse go up and hit his brain and come back down. And then his whole face started, and this was a kid that, I think he had autism, but he was up walking and he's had a few things, but this was not a kid that you would think would have that much delayed response in his body. So that really was for me a very telling, whoa, sometimes it may take them longer to coordinate their efforts, that it really might take a minute for it to get to their brain before it comes back out for them to be able to do their body. Or just to get their body together, especially our kids that are more involved, to get the body going so that they can hit that switch. And usually we don't give them enough time. Or we miss it because we've turned to do something or get something. They make that whatever effort and we've lost it. We didn't see them do it. So sometimes you just need to videotape yourself during a lesson because you learn a lot. And it's not that I love being on video because I hate it. I'd rather, my mama need never worry about me going to Hollywood. I don't like that kind of stuff, but it's really helpful when you're watching for that kid's response to things, because then you're going to see a whole lot more that you may have missed, even when you're sitting right across the table from them. So thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that because it's really, those things are really important,
Yeah, and Nancy, I wanted to add that wait time may be one of the most important things that we have in this list for communication, because if you're not waiting for them to respond or you're missing whatever small response it might be, you are essentially teaching them it doesn't matter. They don't have to. You'll do it for me, or something else will happen anyway, so I don't have to do it.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate that because wait time is just vital. When we think we've waited long enough, wait again. Continue to wait because some of these kiddos, it will take a full 30 seconds for them to respond to something. And we usually give them maybe 5 seconds. And then we really think we've waited, Now, what about parents and getting the words out to parents on any of this information or all of this information? How do we do that? Anybody got anything on that? Wow, crickets. Come on, guys.
Well, I think, like you said, you have to figure out a shared space where you can all feel comfortable adding things and really reaching out to those parents. Because you find out so many new things about kids and what they're able to do through them. And I think you just can't do any of this without them. It's just really very important to, I used to think, well, we're here, we can do all this stuff and we don't really, I don't say that I didn't include them. It's just that annually is not the best. You just have to keep going and you have to keep communicating because like you say, that trust has to be there.
Right. And it's not just the trust with the kid, it's the trust with the parents and the trust with amongst ourselves. And us being vulnerable enough to say, I don't know. And that's very empowering for you to be able to say that to a parent. I don't know. I've never had this kind of situation. Here's the catch though, but I'm willing to learn. We'll learn together. We will try to figure this out. And that's so, and having worked with many, many parents along the way, that's what they want to hear. They already know that we don't know. That's a big news flash. They already know that we don't know it. But the thing is, it's that willingness to find out and be on this journey together. Because these kids don't come with recipe books. They don't come with us knowing exactly how to do everything. They're complex. These kids are hard to figure out. So it's making that relationship with those parents and having them help us to figure out, because they do know a whole lot more, and getting it from them, having those conversations with them and learning what they do at home about these certain things,
Wanted to add in here,
Oh.
Nancy, for our folks who are doing communication packages, upon review of the packages that did not complete last year. So I wouldn't say a failed package, but the ones that decided, we're just not going to continue or could not complete, 100% of them did not have adequate parent involvement or no parent involvement at all. So that was like, why did it fail? We didn't have parent involvement. We didn't involve the parent at the beginning. We didn't invite them to any meetings. And certainly that can look a lot. We have parents who work all day or can't possibly meet during a school day. There's lots of ways that we can work around that. But that parent piece, we say that's crucial. Like, we have the data to back it up. It's crucial in a lot of different ways.
You're exactly right. Thank you for bringing that up, Jessica, because it is so true. And, as a sibling, because I am a sibling, and my brother is 61. So we've been through this journey for a long time, and the parents, at the end of the day, they're the ones that have the responsibility throughout. We're just in there for, it may feel like we've had them forever, but really we don't. It's the responsibility, and the parents need to know this stuff, and they need to understand how to do this stuff. And they're looking to us to help them figure this out. So having those parents involved, and they're able to tell you, oh, well, when he does this, it means such and such. But you have to ask it in the right way. You have to get it out of them, because they don't necessarily see that as communication. They just know that a lot of times it's survival. It's just survival mode. And they're just trying to make it through the day, let alone thinking long range, So really getting the parents' involvement and their thought process, and asking them, what is it you need? How can we help you? That to me is a vital piece of what we do and what we need to offer.
I think it's important too. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak with you there. You got to be not afraid of making a mistake, because you're going to make them. And in front of the parents is fine, because like I said, you gain that trust with them when you make mistakes, and then you learn from each other. Because just dig in, like you say, get down there and get with them, and so that you build that trust and that relationship so that you can move forward.
Because once again, what the kid needs, if they need that trust, so do the other members of the team, and that includes the parents. So if I'm getting that trust to that parent, I'm building that trust, they're going to respect me a whole lot more if I say, I've never done this, but here we are, and I'm in this role that says I'm supposed to be doing this, so let's do it together. How can we figure this out? I love it. Thank you, Kathy, for bringing that in, because it takes a minute. We come out of school and we start working on this journey, and we think that we are supposed to be the professional, so we're supposed to have all the answers. And the older I get, the less answers I really do have, I do have a lot now that I have learned along the way, but I'm also the first one to say, whoa, I haven't done this. Let's try it. What can we do? How can we work together? Because it is about working together. And it's a fun journey once you get on there. And it's also so releasing to you that you don't have to be the expert, Nobody, I don't think anybody has the tiara and the sash that says they're the expert,
I wanted to jump in and add as well. Well, this wasn't the initial thought I had, but just you saying that made me think. I kind of appreciate the fact that we're going through this, and I personally don't have a whole lot of experience using the communication matrix. And it's almost as if I can walk through this process and learn with my team and learn with each other. That's what our parents are going to feel. Every parent that we start this process with that might have a student that would benefit from this whole thing. So I like having this perspective, and maybe have that in the back of my mind after I get used to using this and really dig in and understand it a whole lot more, is that maybe I'll have a better way of explaining it and helping and guiding the parent through the process as well.
And I think you will. That's what's so beautiful about it. I think you will, you know, and just saying, we're learning this together, you know, because that's what life is all about, isn't it? We're either teaching or learning,
Right.
you know?
And my other point was, I have found it, and I'm not 100% on the communication piece yet, but it's in my goal bucket, is that asking parents if there are outside therapies and getting that permission to communicate with outside therapies, so that there's that consistency piece as well. Sometimes I've been working with the student for 2 years, and then I find out, oh, they have outside speech. Oh, I didn't know that, you know? And I think parents also, when that is brought up, and again, the communication isn't always there, but the intention's there, and hopefully getting better at that, but they appreciate that and they want that, you know, they want consistent communication, not only with them, but also with others on the team.
Right. Because at the end of the day, if they know that your heart is there and you want the best for their kid, you know, and that's what you do. That's what you want. You don't have to have all the answers. And isn't that refreshing? Isn't that wonderful just to know that you don't have to have all the answers? They come in and you're not psychic. Wait a minute, I'm getting this vision. Oh, here's what this kid needs. You may have some ideas, but you know, if you coordinate those efforts and really everybody's working on it, and it could be, like I said, parents are in survival mode. You think about your own lives and your own kids and your own things that you're going through, and think about how so much of this, you're just trying to make it through the day. Now, think about the kids you have and them going home and what their lives have to be like, you know, because we're on easy street compared to some of these parents, you know? So just giving them some help along the way, I think, is vital. It's very vital. All right, so do we have anything else that just came up through those videos that you watched? Did you like them? Were they okay? I know they were a little dry. And you never have to watch them again, I promise, unless you just want to. Is there anything else that just hit you, or you thought, wow, hadn't thought about that in a while, or never thought about that? Is there anything that came up?
Maybe more information. I liked the Q dictionary.
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting, and maybe could be a piece that's added on to, say, whatever Google Doc or wherever we're keeping all of the students' information. Very cool. I liked that.
Excellent, because every one of the levels have some kind of dictionary. Your assignment for, and that you just, I wanted to have a conversation about that before we talk about the next thing. But every one of the levels have some sort of dictionary, be it a Q dictionary for our lower levels, up to other things. So that's very helpful. Oh, Rachel.
Yes, I was just curious, for some of our teams that are just starting this journey that we're working with through our AIM teams, is it okay for us to share these videos with them, or is there something? Okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some type of like privacy that I needed to be respectful of, because it was okay. Super,
no.
Thank you.
Here's where we are. West Virginia is the Department of Ed in West Virginia are the ones that are responsible for helping us create these modules, okay? And I in fact have a meeting tomorrow with West Virginia, and we are putting them on a website, and all of these things will be accessible on a website very soon. I think we kick off in West Virginia, which will be the big kickoff for everybody, November 10th. So fingers crossed, light candles, say prayers, whatever it takes, that this stuff will get out on West Virginia's website. It will be on a website so that it can be, anybody can have them at any time. Also, the communication matrix folks know that we're doing this, have been in touch with us the whole way through, and they have agreed to put it on their website as well. So everything will be out, and yes, you may share widely. In fact, once we finish with this, please do. Once we get it, please, because it's my mission from now until the day I quit working, which who knows when that will be, is to get the word out that these are available. And this is because I was that teacher out there in the middle of nowhere going, I don't know what to do, and I don't know where resources were. And I was out there before the internet. So it was really hard. So if my gift to the world is to please learn from my mistakes. Anything that you can take from this, please take it. So, and I will make sure that you guys, hopefully, when we meet on the 9th, we're kicking off on the 10th in West Virginia. So hopefully I'll have that web address on the 9th, and I will be able to tell it to you all when we're together. Okay, so thanks for that. Okay, so I want to switch the conversation a little bit because this goes straight into our homework assignment. All of you all have done a matrix by now, and some of you have done many, but the next conversation I'd like for us to have, and I'd like for you all to please jump in on this. It's which level to target, because we've done it. You've gotten your nice little picture out there, your little graphic that shows what where your kid is, what intents, whether it's yellow or orange or white. You've got all of that. But then when you start thinking about levels and where to target, it comes to this, and which level do we target? And that, for me, you can look at these profiles, and it's a team decision. It's really the team's decision, including the parents, especially the parents, because we really want to target what's going to be right for the kid, what's going to be the best place, and where are we going to get the most bang for our buck. So it starts with, where are they? Where do we see those? And I looked at several of yours. Some of them are really well, have a lot of intents in a lot of different levels. Some of them have a lot in the obtain and the refuse section, but not so much in the social or the information. And a lot of them in the information part, they have nothing. So it's really looking at, what do we do? How do we make those decisions? And that's where the conversation with you as your team, you decide which level to target. Are we going to go for mastery across the whole level? Or are we happy with that and we're going to go down further to go to a higher level and get them there, and then go back and look at some of those intents? So I'd love for anybody to jump in, especially you SLPs, to jump in and talk to me and just have a group discussion a little bit about, what are we looking for? How do we do that? And these are some of the questions that really, off the top of my head, I was thinking as you're thinking through. Do you want to go for mastery across all the level? I don't think that that's necessarily important. One thing I would look at is if I'm looking at that profile and I see that all the way down there's white space in some of those, and then I want to look at that intent, and I want to ask myself and the team, is that because we haven't exposed them to something? We've not given them any exposure to it. We haven't given them any way to practice this particular skill or this particular intent. Is that something that we need to go back and address at this point? Or is that not really high on our radar right now? And we need to, table that, put it to the side, and not necessarily think about that one at this point, because another thing is more important. So that's one of the things as you're thinking through and you're looking at those profiles and you're planning your plan of attack, your communication plan. That's one of the things that you really need to think about is that what level do I target? So anybody want to SLPs? Y'all want to jump in and give me some thoughts on any of this?
So I'm not an SLP, but I do want to jump in. The one thing that I always ask when we're trying to decide what level, what message, whatever it is I ask the parents, is there something you want your son or daughter to be able to communicate either at all or more proficiently? Whatever that is part of the plan.
Amen. Amen. Because thinking back, once again, I'm going to put you in that parent's place. And if I can give them anything that can make their day go better, easier, whatever, that's where I want to go. That's what I want to do, because that's buy-in for that parent. That also gives them hope, where if you think about it from that parent standpoint, and we sit them in IEP rooms, and all of us are professionals, we're the experts, and we come in and tell them all the things their kids can't do. So if I can give them things that they can do, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Okay, I can see that you are here. You put your camera on, so please.
I was just going to say it made me think of not one of the students that I'm currently working with, but in the past, there was a meeting that we had, and the parent, we asked that question, and they said, you know what, potty training has just been so difficult. We've tried and we've tried everything, and we kind of talked about what had been tried and what we could do here at school, and that's a routine, and coming up with a plan, a visual schedule, what are the steps that she needs to take, and what are some of the cues that she's giving before maybe she has an accident. Is there anything that happens, those types of things, and all that information that parent gave us actually helped us in helping with the whole process. So yeah, that parents' involvement 100%, and knowing and asking those questions in the hopes that they are there and willing to share.
Excellent. Thank you. So all right, when we're thinking about the levels, and I'm going to go back to the levels now, and thinking about them and thinking about where to target, have you guys in your own individual teams, after going through and doing the matrix and all that, have you come up with which level, where your student is, what you want to target? Because sometimes you want to stay on the level where they are. You want to stay, if a kid's a level 3 and okay, he's got a few of these intents, but we want to go across. But others want to dig deeper. So which way have you all decided what team, where your kid is, and how they're going to how you're going to move forward, because that's really important for your homework assignment.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about the student that I'm thinking of that we're working with on the team for. For him, a lot of the communication that we have found out from mom, it's based upon, what she does at home, what she is kind of interpreted as her communication system for him, which essentially is he's crying. He's not really reaching for things when he wants something. It's usually what her response is, oh, I know what he wants, so I just do it for him. So in that sense, I feel like our team would really want to go a little bit more towards that conventional, like right now he's starting a little bit on that level 3. But I think moving down might be important for him in order to get more of that conventional communication, in the sense that we want him to be able to use those yes and no's appropriately. If we're using something if we're crying about whatever it is, making a choice or something like that. And so, because he can request for certain things, but in order to make those choices, choices are powerful. So I feel like in order to do that, I feel like we need to give him more of, specific ways in order to refuse, instead of just like completely crying and just like turning away and walking away. It's like, let's push it away. Let's say, oh no, thank you. So I think that's kind of giving him more of those, instead of maybe not those types of like more symbolic gestures, gestures, or starting to work on sign with him. I think that's really kind of what we're targeting him for. That's at least the idea that I have for him.
But you say he's level 3?
He's starting level 3.
Okay. I think it's going to be really important for you. I love that we have these levels here, that's your homework assignment this next time, is to watch these levels, because I think it's really important to really understand that level and the implementation strategies that would go with that. I think that, some of the things that you're talking about may be at a higher level that he's not ready for. He's not ready yet,
right,
for yes, no, those kind of things maybe. But I think it's going to be exciting. I mean, I'm really excited then for you to see these levels, because what the levels will do, and that's why I'm asking if you know which level you're going to target, because your homework assignment for, let me see if there it is. We're going to ask you to watch the levels that apply to your individual. And it may be one, but then you may get into it and go, oh, that's not the right one. This doesn't feel like my student. Maybe I need to either move up or move down, so you may have to do that. We're going to give you all 7 levels, but we're only going to ask you to do one level and they're typically 1 and 2 only have one video with them, associated with them. The other levels 3 through 7 have 2. They're broken into 2. So maybe an hour's worth of time that you're going to spend on the level, that's going to give you a lot of different intervention strategies, but it's also going to talk and unpack that level a little bit and help you to really understand and know what's going on in that level and why it's important. The other thing is that we have a resource kit, and that resource kit, you're going to have access to it as well. And it's got all kinds of things, including overviews of each one of the levels. So a dear friend of mine took everything out of each one of those levels and put them into overviews, so that all the things that we unpacked, she's put them in there. So it shows what the goals are for that level, what the goals are for us for that level, all of the different stuff. So it might be important that you pull those overviews out and maybe even print them out, especially the one that you like, the one that you're targeting, plus maybe the one above or below, because you may want to look at those as you're viewing that, to go, oh, wait a minute, this is something that's important in this one that maybe you didn't get, because they are all different. So know that that's a really important piece, is to review those resource kits. A lot of them, they may have other things in there. I think each one of those dictionaries that somebody said they liked and wanted, I think each one of those are in those resource kits. So there's so many things. You could get lost in there for days. You don't need to go in and know everything. And I'm not going to stop you at the door when we get to Indy and make you recite each one of them. But, I want you to know those things and what's in there, because when we meet face to face, here's what we're going to do, folks. I want that to be wear your jeans, bring your chocolate, and we're going to sit and plan. You're going to sit with your teams and we really unpack all this stuff. You really unpack those routines. You really unpack those communication dictionaries, and you really sit down, and this gives you that time to spend with each other and thinking about what it is we want, what goals do we want? And those goals aren't necessarily for the kids. Sometimes those goals are for us. Sometimes it's the goal is the team is going to complete the communication dictionary, and that includes the parents. So that means that we got a plan for somebody to meet with that parent and sit down with them. So, you know, that's just an example of something that might be a goal for us, right? In fact, a lot of this, I think, is more us driven than the actual kid goal driven on the work that we're showing you. Lisa, were you going to say?
No,
Oh,
not yet.
Jessica.
I was just going to say one of the great things about getting more comfortable with the levels is you're going to have better conversations with parents, especially if they come up with number one request, when I call it the magic wand question, what do you want your child to be able to do that they're not doing right now that Lisa was talking about? 9 times out of 10, it's something to do with, I want him to tell me if he's in pain. I want him to tell me what's wrong. And I'm never not going to want, I mean, for crying out loud, you start crying and like, yeah, I want him to do that too. But when you have that conversation of how do we get there and what skills we're working on now, that's going to be a lot easier to be able to visualize and show them like, okay, we're just starting level 3. And these are things that we can certainly model and give them lots of opportunities. But what you're asking for, when he starts doing that, is over here in level, you know, probably 4 to 6, you know, somewhere in there, being able to comment and tell you what's going on. So just giving those yes, no questions you mentioned. I can't tell you how many times people want to work on yes, no questions. Like linguistically, that's really difficult. That's a really, you know, big skill if you don't yet have the ability to choice make yet. So that's going to really help you have those conversations with parents. This is where we want to be. This is where we are now. This is the path to get there.
And that resource kit, also, she's broken down in a lot of our strategies and that kind of stuff. She's put them in there. And so therefore you can copy it out and you have it tangibly so that you can have that conversation with a parent and talk about the different steps or the different, this is why we do this and that's why it's so important. So hopefully having all of this together in one place is going to just release you and make you feel like you have like you're ready to not only tackle this yourself, but you can help others along this process and along this road. Does that make sense? So that is what we want to do in Indy, is to sit together in our groups, in our different teams, and really plan out. We've got, you know, you did activity 1. We have a 5 or 6 page like process that we're going to take you through. That's just kind of a planning process that helps you with the goals and then breaking down. Let's think about the routines he does during the school day. How can we break down those routines and where we're going to plug in that communication to it. And so it really is going to be, where you have a chance to get dirty with it. Just down and dirty, and hopefully you'll come out when you leave Indy and go back to your classroom, then you're going to have a lot more ideas and a little more coordinated effort in what you're going to do, you know, or at least a game plan. Does that make sense? Help? Okay. Lisa, you sent them, right? You sent them the resource. It's in our Google folder.
It's in the folder. There's a sheet that has links to all of the levels, and then there's a Google Drive link that tells where the resources are. And there's apparently a problem with the evaluation. I believe that even though it says October 6th, that is the correct eval, but I will continue to check it, and then I'll get back to you with another link.
Okay. All right. So anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments? Anybody have anything else? I hope, did y'all like the information? Was it helpful? Yes, no? I mean, yay, I like the thumbs up. Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate that. Hopefully the information that we gave you is a lot to think about. Now you're going to go into those levels, and you may, like I said, we're asking you to look at one level. Now, if you want to look at all of them, go for it. Eventually, my thought is get through this one kid first and work through the whole process. Then afterwards, you can start picking and choosing from other levels as you need. But I think it's going to help you to get it clearer if you just go with one level at this point. Nobody's asking you to do more. You might look at some of the others if you don't, but those overviews are really going to help you more than anything. Okay. So do we have any questions, concerns, comments, anything for the good of the cause?
Thanks again for being here, guys.
Yes, we appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all face to face on the 9th.
Okay.
Be ready.